Reports breaking overnight that President Obama is planning to address the nation this Wednesday to outline his strategy for taking on the threat posed by ISIS. This after his meeting in Wales last week, where he said 9 NATO nations plus Australia have pledged their support and stand ready to assist in the fight against the Islamic State terrorist organization. The president also planning to meet with congressional leaders this upcoming Tuesday as they return. Congressman Lynn Westmoreland is a member of the House Intelligence Committee. He joins us right now. Congressman, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Maria. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the latest out of NATO. And, of course, the president has said that the U.S. will form a core coalition to counter ISIS. What's your take on that?
Well, I think the coalition partners are going to wait and see exactly what this president's strategy is. Wednesday, when he makes the announcement, of course, he's meeting with the congressional leaders Tuesday. It's just hard for, I think, people to have a lot of confidence in what this president says by just his past actions. And so it'll be interesting to see what this core coalition will actually do once he lays out the plan.
Well, what do you think it should look like? Of course, we saw more airstrikes overnight, and the U.S. Looking to have this policy where we're doing airstrikes, but nothing sort of comprehensive. What should it look like?
Well, Maria, since the Snowden released some of the intelligence stuff, ISIS has capitalized on that, knowing how we track them. And, you know, when you are on the end of a Hellfire missile, you don't get a lot of information out of that person. And one of our key strategies and what we were so successful with in Iraq was being able to capture some of these guys and get the intelligence. If you look at after the Osama bin Laden raid, the information that we got off their computers and you know, cell phones and other things to be able to locate some of these other people. And so when you're doing something with a Hellfire missile, I mean, I'm glad we're taking them out, but at the same time, it could involve, you know, boots on the ground. I don't want to see that. I don't think I think we're all war weary. But you know what, Maria, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I wonder if boots on the ground is an eventuality in all of this. Congressman, we need to talk about that. Stay with us because we've got plenty more to talk with you about. But first, let's take a look at NATO. How have the dynamics of this organization changed, and how do those changes play out today? Fox News senior correspondent Eric Shawn on that angle. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. It was founded in 1949 to face the Soviet threat. Well, now NATO finds itself again confronting an ominous and aggressive Russia and a new enemy, the radical jihadist Islamic terrorists of ISIS. From its headquarters in Brussels, the now 28-member North Atlantic Treaty Organization has a long history of protecting Western interests, its missions evolving after the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. In 1999, the NATO forces waged a successful 78 bombing campaign of Kosovo. In 2003, NATO troops were dispatched to Afghanistan as part of the international fight against the Taliban after 9/11. But while striking ISIS will, we're told, mean no U.S. forces on the ground, the heavy lifting, as always, will come from us. American taxpayers pay more than 2/3, or 67%, of NATO's $9 billion plus budget, kicking in $618 billion. That's 12 times more than Britain, 10 times more than France and Germany, while the smallest contributor, Albania, pays only $168 million. And as a percentage of our GDP, U.S. defense spending is far higher than other NATO members, 4.4%, compared to 2.4% for Britain, less than 2% for the next highest pair, Turkey and France, and just over 1% for Germany.
President Obama came in as a very idealistic president. In his national security strategy, he always spoke about the world we seek. Well, we have to deal with the world as it is, and we also have to realize that there are many forces, especially in this in the Islamic world, in the Islamic region, that are still at war with us. I think President Bush had it right with regard to the global war on terrorism. I think it still is. I also think you need to have an incredible network of U.S. capability, multi-party, multinational capability to defeat this particular threat.
Well, NATO is building a new large headquarters near the Brussels airport to replace its home of many decades. It is a fitting symbol for a new era and a new global threat of Islamic terrorism that NATO's founders more than 6 decades ago would never have imagined. Maria?
All right, Eric, thanks very much. Eric Shawn, more now with Congressman Lynn Westmoreland joining us. And Congressman, what about NATO? What kind of support would you look for from our allies? The president's calling it broad support from allies and partners for ruling out committing ground forces from the U.S.
Well, you got to remember that this president's credibility is not real high right now with anybody, the American people or our allies. And I just got back from the Middle East on a trip, and you talk to people over there, and they don't really understand, what this president's thinking is. I mean, here we are arming people that we're not really sure who they are, and yet we've got the Kurds that are on the ground fighting, pushing back ISIS, and we don't want to send them the weaponry that they need. So it's quite confusing to our allies and our foes combined. So I think this president sees us as part of a world community, and he has failed yet to understand that we're Americans, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that our citizens and our homeland is protected. And so I hope he will finally come to that conclusion, is that, look, we've got to protect ourselves. And if these other people want to join, that's great. If they don't, then he's got to be a leader and go in there and do what we need to do based on the information that we have.
Particularly given that ISIS seems to be mocking the U.S., already beheading 2 American journalists. Is ISIS more of a threat to the U.S. or Iraq?
Well, yeah, I mean, they want us. I mean, they will tell you that that is their ultimate goal. Now, sure, they've got the caliphate set up, and they're even talking to the Egyptians now about spreading it into the Sinai. And so, this is something that's not going to stop. And once they get the state set up and how big a state it is that they want, they're taking care of business. I mean, they've got a plan. We don't. They do. And once they get that state set up, you better believe that America is going to be a big target for them. And not only America, but our Western interest all across this world is going to be a target for them. And we need to just get real and understand that this is not something that you can put in the back of your mind and it's going to go away. And I think that's what really this president's whole philosophy is. Well, if I don't think about it, it won't happen. He goes back to that Scarlett O'Hara quote in Gone with the Wind, well, fiddly-dee, I'll just worry about it tomorrow.
Yeah. Congressman, good to have you on the program. Thanks for your insights. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Maria.